Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm alrav from Quebec, Canada, and I'm the author and creator of Alcatraz the Protector, also known as Alcatraz le Protector. And for today's video, I'm going to show you the process on how to make your own comic book, which is the same process that I use to create my own Alcatraz. Spoiler alert, it is the same thing every time, so I'm going to do it one more time just for this once. The first step before doing any sort of writing or art for a comic book consists of the synopsis. What it is an overview, a summary of the story itself that's going to be told. It's around 2 to 3 pages long, no more or less than that. The key point is you have a basic overview of the story and the characters that are featured in it before you start making the comic book. So once you've settled in on what your story is all about and what characters, settings and stuff are in place, that's when you can proceed on to making a script. The second step is the scripting phase itself. There are two ways to do it. The first is the classic written form in which you describe everything in every case. The second one is usually recommended for those who are the artists of their own books or any writers who know a few basic drawing lessons to make visual script. The advantage of this process is you have a preview of the finished art product before it is made into an actual finished page. That way you can take the time to refine and revisit and reimagine central part of the page itself once it is made into the larger paper size format. Before doing any sort of comic book page, it is best to have as much documentation as possible. This includes reference sheet for characters as well as settings and location fleshed out. So once you are ready to draw, you can focus on the art itself. And once that's enough content made for the preparation phase, that's when you can proceed toward the making of the finished artwork itself. The third step is the making of the finished artwork itself. Usually it is done on A3 size paper, which is larger than the publication format. However, if there is none available, you can always take 2 A4 size papers, put tape behind them and stick them together so it will make A3 size paper. It is the same trick that I use for making this particular comic book. Usually the time it takes to make a finished product like this can vary greatly from one page to the next. For instance, close-up shots can be done very quickly, while backgrounds, it is okay to go overboard with them, so it can take longer. But usually on average, it can take about 2 to 3 hours per steps to make a finished page like this. And this can vary greatly depending on one region from the next as well. For instance, in the United States, usually the pencils and the inking process are done separately by separate people, but in Europe and Japan, the process is done to the artist only. So it adds up to the time it takes in return. Usually for this particular comic book, I took a hybrid of traditional and digital techniques. So the art will first be traced with pen such as the Faber-Castell variety before it will be scanned on the computer, and from there on I will then revise and correct the art, and once that's done I will add up the additional inking spot and alongside the coloring process. So that way it's 50-50. So once the finished artwork has been inked, it is much easier to scan and it is much easier to correct in return, and that's when you can proceed on to the final steps. And finally, here is the final steps, the digital correcting and coloring. This was the first time I've done anything like that in the size and scope that it took. So the correcting process is usually done first before the coloring, and it was done through the use of paint.net, which is a free, inexpensive alternative to the likes of Photoshops or any other art program. And I did not have any sort of tablet to work on, so I used the mouse to do. It was quite a learning experience to do, and I've definitely learned a lot of lessons on the way. One particular trick, for instance, is that before putting on the color on the art itself, in some of the earlier artwork, if you only fill in the colors between the lines, it created this weird effect where there will be weird colored dots that will show up. It is less apparent on the publication format than on the page themselves, but in the later artworks I've produced, I would put on a blue filter first before putting any sort of coloring, so that way all the rough spots that can be spotted on the lines, they will be covered in blue, so it wouldn't show up as often in the finished product. So it was definitely tough to make, but one thing that for sure is that the coloring does play a big part of the appeal, especially in Western comics, European one especially. It's a process that's optional, but I've decided to do it this way because one difference between manga and Western comics and la bande-dessinée is that manga have a very well environment to produce very quick, rapid production schedule, and there is a synergy with anime and such that's very machine-like. Something like that is simply not possible in the West. So instead of wishing for an anime adaptation, I've decided to simply add in the colors so people can have a taste of what it really looked like. With that being said, this is what it takes to make a comic book like this. I work as a one-man crew, so if I had a team, it would probably be possible to make these sort of stories a lot faster. But as a one-man crew, it is not uncommon for a comic like this to take many weeks, months, or even years in certain instances. With that being said, I do hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you think in the commentary section and if you have anything you want to add. With that being said, thanks for watching, and I do hope you look forward to the next reading materials available on my Substack. Thanks for watching. Good reading.